Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson, and I'm joined in the studio today by Professor Krzysztof Jabłonka, and we're going to look at the early days of the PPR. Professor, the PPR started during the war and sort of was gone by 1947. Can you say some words about it, why it came into being and what happened to it?
Trzeba pamiętać o okolicznościach.
One must remember the circumstances in which the Polish Workers' Party was established in Poland. During the war, the underground state in Poland was very well organized. All political groups formed a separate parliament and also a parliament in exile. Here, the communists did not have the opportunity to show themselves at all. There were very few of them anyways. Many emigrated to Russia, where they were murdered by Stalin in 1938. It was necessary to have active agents, hence Marceli Nowotko, a communist who survived somewhere in the depths of Russia, was airdropped over Poland on a parachute, and in December 1942, probably on December 5th, the Polish Workers' Party, or PPR, was formed. It was a very niche party. Even nationalist parties were much more numerous. The PPR counted several thousand people in the whole country. They also tried to create an armed force called Gwardia Ludowa, or the People's Guard. Due to the lack of volunteers, the People's Guard, using the weapons dropped by the Soviet Union, employed criminals to fight, giving them weapons and ordering individual attacks. Nowotko became famous for his deceptive contacts with the Home Army, Poland's most powerful army with 500,000 underground fighters. Each contact with the communists ended up in the so-called ambushes. Instead of meeting with the communists for negotiations, they encountered German Gestapo police waiting for them. It was then that two of Nowotko's collaborators, the Mołowiec brothers, communist heroes of the civil war in Spain, realized that he had probably contacted the Gestapo and that he was an agent. They lured him and murdered him in the Wola district. It turned out that he was an agent, but a Soviet one. He was given an order to eviscerate the Polish underground with the help of the Gestapo, and thus prepare the country for Soviet occupation. In retaliation for this, both brothers were murdered by other communists. The way the Communist Party in Poland behaved was similar to how the mafia operated in Chicago. Eventually, the third successor of Nowotko was arrested by the Germans. His name was Finder. Only the fourth one, Władysław Gomułka, was chosen by the Poles after severing contacts with Moscow. Later, he played a great role after the fall of Stalinism. When the Soviet army entered Poland, a Soviet agent, Bolesław Bierut, was smuggled in along with them. When he was young, his name was Jastrzębski. He was imposed on Poland. He was a type of mini-Stalin in a system of full dictatorship. So it was difficult to talk about independence while we were fully subordinated to the Soviet Union, which, after a short period of time, deprived Poles of elementary freedoms, not only civil, but also human ones.
Elementarnych swobód, nie tylko obywatelskich, ale i ludzkich.
So, Professor, how was the party able to attempt to create a new state? I mean, I heard there were falsified referenda, falsified elections. Could you say something about
The communists were such a small minority in Poland that they were afraid of any real election taking place, as they would lose power. The elections were delayed under the excuses that many Poles were yet to come back from internment and concentration camps, and that there was overall a huge mess in Poland. Instead of elections that were to give Poland an independent government, as the Yalta Conference was supposed to promise, a trial referendum was held. It was all the more false, considering that two questions were essentially meaningless. They referred to the lands taken away from the Germans, and naturally, every Pole believed that these lands should be returned to Poland. The questions were: do you wish these lands to return to Poland? As well as, do you wish to instill a political system in which a large part of the property, with the exception of private property, is nationalized? The third question was posed somewhat in reverse. Instead of asking, do you want the Senate to be a part of the future parliament? The question was, do you wish to abolish the Senate? It was all done so that the election slogan was 3 times yes. yes, yes and yes to all three questions. That is when a poem was written which translates to "only a dumb bird votes yes 3 times", which rhymes in Polish. Even this referendum was falsified, but in some areas the real results were revealed. It turned out that this support for the Senate was the most important. In reality, that was a hidden question, where the Poles wanted to establish the communist system in the country, and the Poles said no. The authorities implemented violent persecution of the Polish People's Party, an agrarian movement to which the Polish Prime Minister in exile in London belonged to. It was supposed to be an ally of the working class, at least theoretically, but in reality they were for an independent Poland and against Soviet Union control. So when in January 1947 the parliamentary elections finally took place, there was one independent party which was not connected with the Polish United Workers' Party. The Communist Party was afraid to run alone because it was hated, so they created a so-called Democratic Bloc, which was in fact not democratic at all. All those who managed to get out of other parties entered the Democratic Bloc. The Polish People's Party ran as a sole opponent and won the election 75 to 25%. But then the communists simply reversed the results. According to Stalin's rule, it doesn't matter who votes, but who counts the votes. A false election result was imposed.
So, Professor, how did the PPR become the PZPR?
First of all, the Polish Workers' Party could not exist in its earlier form because the name itself was hated by the population because of its connotations. After selecting appropriate coalition members, especially from the Polish Socialist Party, which had a tradition of supporting the Polish state sovereignty, in 1949 a merger was conducted and the entire labor movement was forcibly united to form the Polish United Workers' Party. Needless to say, Poles immediately mocked this party as an enemy party. Unfortunately, this hostile party ruled over the Poles for almost 40 years, causing enormous damage to our economy and cultural development. After 40 years, we resisted it and won.
Ale przedstawiliśmy opór I wygraliśmy.
That's all we've got time for on this edition. I'd like to thank my guest, Professor Krzysztof Jabłonka. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and do join us again as we delve into the annals of Polish history.